Man, you. If Klutzy King's milking Quantum, I might as well too. But how are you guys doing? You know, another day, another slay. But anyways, God of War Ragnarok is out. I finished it, and you know what? I'll give PlayStation credit. They made a damn good game. I finished that shit in like 5 days, which is faster than JTech TV, Saltiest Gaming, King Thrash, and Porter Rock 77. And those are the only ones I bothered to look up right now. I'm working on a writing analysis for the game, which should be out in the coming week. But yeah, honestly, I loved it. I mean, the gameplay is alright. It's the standard for a Sony game. But the writing on this game, this is a huge breath of fresh air after Horizon Forbidden West. Holy shit. I liked Ragnarok better than 2018, honestly. The stakes felt so much higher, the characters had more compelling arcs, the set pieces were way cooler than anything the first game had to offer, and it turns out Quantum TV actually did end up liking the game too. So you might be asking yourself, Josh, why the fuck are you making fun of him again today? What the fuck did Quantum ever do to you? And the answer is nothing, but it's just funny to fuck with him. I mean, there is actually quite a bit that's happened with Quantum since I uploaded last. I mean, he already made one video on God of War Ragnarok, which I won't get too into right now because a lot of stuff he said in that video he's gonna say in this video. He made a video calling Black Adam a satanic worshipping movie. That was funny as fuck. He also joined Mischief's Discord server for some reason. And then he finally made the review of God of War Ragnarok that we're gonna be looking at today. And his review of this game is also pretty shit. It's a lot of nitpicking and a lot of just straight up having zero experience in looking at writing. And yeah, we're gonna check it out. So enough talking and let's see what YouTube has shout out today.
Dad of War.
Guys, look, it's a definitely not overplayed joke that was already kinda old by the time the last game came out in 2018. Quantum, you are such a funny man. But you know what? I'll give him credit. He finally has music in the background. This is a huge step up from what it was like before with the really ass audio balancing and everything.
Today I'm going to be giving you a review on it. Now, a lot of people have kind of already picked what side of the aisle they're going to be standing on. They either like the game or really hate the game for various reasons.
Who the fuck hates the game? Like, maybe I'm just super out of the loop in news lately since I got banned from Twitter for like a week after I ironically told someone to KYS in Elden Ring. But shit, I don't remember people saying they hated the game. Actually, I thought the consensus on this game was even more positive than Elden Ring, since it does have an easy mode and pretty much anyone can get into it. Not to imply that Elden Ring not having an easy mode is in any way a flaw of the game, because it's definitely not. But like, the only people I've seen try to say the game is downright dog shit are like the Xbox fanboys, which I mean, like, what the fuck do they have that can compare to God of War from this year? Nothing. Exactly. I mean, I see how people don't like it because they think the game's gameplay isn't great or it treats the players like they're 5 on some of the easier difficulties, or how the whole controversy with there being no option to turn off the characters helping you with the puzzles, but Quantum barely brings that shit up and doesn't even touch on the hand-holding point at all.
I'm just going to be giving my take since reviews are subjective. Take it for what it is. You don't have to agree with me. You can disagree all you want.
I love how after the Elden Ring situation, he always has to say, oh, this is just my opinion. Reviews are subjective. You don't have to agree with me, to try to avoid criticism getting made fun of before any of his bad takes. And then on top of that, it literally never fucking works if you look at the amount of videos that are being made on him by now.
And again, you can always agree. But I think we should talk about this game because I think it's actually pretty good and pretty bad at the same time, and we'll talk about why. So if we look at the box art, it's kind of like meh.
Oh my god. You know, when you look at a review, right, it's usually them telling you whether the product is worth buying or not, right? And you would mostly focus on the points that a lot of people might not know about the product if they didn't do any research yet, right? So Quantum, why the fuck are you reviewing the box art for the game? Honestly, I agree with him on the whole box art thing, actually. The box art for the game is pretty fucking mid. I think it should have been something like Kratos and Atreus fighting Thor and Odin or something like that. But that being said, the box art is completely insignificant when trying to judge a product and say whether it's worth it or not. You see the box art in the store, it's promotional material. That's like reviewing a fucking movie and bringing up the trailers being bad as a talking point for why it's not a good movie. Like, maybe in a full 5-hour analysis of the game where you break down every little detail about it, discussing the box art of the game can actually be interesting. But in a review that's supposed to be like fairly quick, this is nowhere near important and it's really just wasting the viewer's damn time. But wait, the nitpicking gets even fucking dumber.
There's not like a whole lot of crazy graphics going around, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little old school, but I like back in the day when they used to do that cool little thing, how they used to kind of put little cutscenes to show you what the game would be like, certain aspects of gameplay that they're highlighting.
I mean, yeah, again, this is all fair criticism, but it does not fucking matter. It is promotional material. It has one purpose, and that is to sell the product to the consumer. I don't know why you're wasting so much time talking about it.
I wish they would have done that. Most games don't do that nowadays, so I guess we'll let that one go.
So if you admit that it doesn't even fucking matter, why are you bringing this shit up? Oh my god.
But if we talk about further onto the additional offerings of the bonus characters and what they offer, so I guess maybe you can be happy if you like the color white and gold as like, I don't know, like he's a Spartan, so I would have expected like maybe like an exclusive Spartan outfit, maybe the OG skins to be like a pre-order bonus, but to see this like kind of like it's a colored version of an armor piece that is literally already in the game, and it just doesn't really feel very unique or exclusive. It kind of removes any real desire to have pre-ordered in the first place.
That's right, everyone. He is now reviewing the fucking pre-order bonus cosmetics. He has so little to talk shit about this game on that he is going to talk shit about the box art and the fucking pre-order bonus, neither of which will influence anything a consumer has to buy the game or not. I mean, again, I can't say I disagree with him. The pre-order bonus for the game is pretty lame. I mean, shit, I didn't even use the code that came with the game to get the pre-order bonus because I just didn't care that much. But come the fuck on, Quantum. How is something that only the people who would buy a game before it came out, how is something that only the people who would buy a game before it came out would get important at all to the people who are going to buy the game now?
So the pre-order bonus is definitely a little weak in my opinion there. The install size for God of War is basically 84 gigs if you're on PlayStation 5 and well over 100 if you're on PS4. Now, this is again in line with what we've seen, so we can't really be too critical here. Games are just going to be really large, so you're going to have to invest in storage. Though I will say it is annoying to see that the game is this big and the graphical improvements aren't really kind of in line with the game of this size. NANI? More on that later.
Give it up for Quantum, everyone. He gave his first valid criticism in any of the reviews we've seen. That deserves a lot of applause, honestly. And then he had to ruin it for himself right after by using a dead meme.
Taking to the main menu, you can kind of see a couple different things. I mean, you have the typical story elements and options, but they're—
Bro, story elements? What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, there's story elements in the menu. Jesus Christ. Oh my, I have to think that he's like talking about the recap, but like, I don't know. It's just funny as fuck how he thinks there's story elements in the menus. Jesus. Oh my god.
There's nothing really unique, right? And I think this is where these story games kind of, for a lot of people where we heard a lot of the negativity come from, kind of play into part, because typically when you have a game that's story driven, the only thing that matters in a story game after the story is beaten is its replayability, the replay value. This game, like many other story games, have very little replay value because it's just repetitive and it doesn't really do a whole lot to change that. It would have been nice to see, for example, a challenge mode of some sort included in the game as a separate option in the main menu, to where when you click on it, like old school games, there's all kinds of crazy challenges that really put your gear and your skills that you spent getting up to the test, and it just doesn't happen that way. Another problem is, even though that game doesn't have some sort of replayability through challenge modes or other unique custom modes that we would have loved to see, it just does not have that replayability because it doesn't have chapters. I don't know how many games that are story driven they like to make where it's just a one playthrough and then you restart all over again. I think that kind of defeats the purpose, especially in a game plus mode, for example. I feel like, so you're already acknowledging I beat the game, I've already got all my stats, I've already got all my gear. Let me pick what chapter and what part of the game I want to play. The only way to do this is to have a pre-existing game save onto your drive and then play from that point, but that's kind of pointless because you're not always going to have a bunch of game saves, so I think that's really annoying.
Now this next piece I took a lot of heat for, and I really don't care, because I still feel the same way. The pacing of the story is too slow. Simply put, they spend too many hours on screen talking, to the point where a lot of people have called this a cutscene simulator.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there. The story is slow so they can develop the characters more. When Ragnarok starts, a shit ton has changed after the end of the first game. The world is way different. There are all these new characters. A lot of the characters in the first game have changed a shit ton. I mean, by the start of Ragnarok, Atreus is basically a completely different character now. He's grown up a shit ton, and they have a lot to establish that he can fend for himself. Oh, people are complaining that there's too much story? Well, it's a Sony story-based game and a sequel to God of War 2018. What the fuck did you expect? I see how people just don't like these types of games, but I think think that's just more of a subjective thing. I agree that the levels are a little too long and the game took me about 25 hours to finish, which honestly, I think about 5 to 7 hours of that could have been cut out. And even still, with those 5 to 7 hours, a lot of plot elements have felt kind of rushed at the end or just aren't satisfying. A big example that comes to my mind is the whole plot line with the surviving family of Thor and them meeting Atreus. It was set up to be really interesting in the first half, with Sif hating Atreus for killing her sons Magni and Modi, and Thrud wanting to protect him, but then it just kind of magically gets solved after the final boss with like a random line of dialogue, and it's just really lame to see. I think the reason why a lot of people think the pacing for the game is shit is because there are so many moments where they just force in a random combat encounter that honestly in the story makes no fucking sense as to why it's there. 2018 had this problem too. Both of these games do a really bad job of incorporating gameplay into their story, honestly, now that I think about it. And yeah, I know how that sounds. It sounds like I'm just saying the game has too much gameplay, but no, I'm really not. It just does a really fucking bad job of incorporating most of its combat encounters into its actual story. Like, I don't know how many times I just fucking groaned playing the game because I was thrown into a random ass boss fight with some creature that does not matter in the game story whatsoever. From what I've seen of the original 3 God of War games, those games seem to do it way better. I think 2018 and Ragnarok would have functioned way better as movies. Now that I think about it, actually, incorporation of gameplay into the story is probably the most common flaw I see in story-based games. Good incorporation of gameplay can make a game go from its writing is good, but you should just watch it online because it's not worth playing, to holy shit, this game's story is really good, but you can't experience the true mastery of the writing without playing it fully. I'll give Ragnarok some credit on this criticism though. It does a significantly better job incorporating gameplay than 2018 did. Like, I genuinely cannot remember a single boss fight from 2018 outside of Thor's sons and Baldur, but that being said, Ragnarok's incorporation of gameplay still isn't anywhere close to good. A good example of what incorporation of gameplay is actually a lot of CD Projekt Red's games. In both Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher 3, you're basically a mercenary who kills for a living. So, like, if the question ever comes up, why are you killing all these people and monsters? It's to make money. It's as simple as that. It's simple, but it's really effective in keeping the player wanting to actually play the game instead of just watch a let's play of it online. Basically, when you're writing a story-based game and you're having a gameplay encounter, you need to answer the question, why the fuck am I fighting these things? If the answer is only, well, it's in your way and it's evil, that answer is dumb as fuck. Because not only in real life would anyone just rather run past the thing, but you can't because there's some random fucking border, it's also really generic and boring. That's why I don't really like most fantasy games, because most monsters are written without a personality and just aren't interesting to fight. God damn, there is so much shit I want to say on that now that I've finally talked about it, but honestly, that should go in its own video because I already filled up an entire fucking page of my script writing about this shit. But yeah, basically I agree with Quantum that the pacing is too slow, but for nowhere near the same reason.
It didn't really feel like you were being dropped into this action game. It felt a lot like it was a very slow opening of a movie, and not a very good one. And it's to the point where the pacing of the story has a very roller coaster vibe. It goes up, down, you don't really know like what's happening until they get to certain parts of the story and you go, okay, that's what you're referencing here.
Yeah, it does that because one, it's called foreshadowing and it's in literally every good story ever fucking written. And the game also has a huge reliance on prophecies being elements of its plot, so it was bound to have foreshadowing to be used a shit ton, which there is nothing wrong with that at all.
It's just, I don't know, I didn't like the writing personally. I thought it had a lot of room for improvement until the latter half of the game. Now,
sure, the latter half of the game is a lot more action-packed and a lot more plot-focused, that's true, but both 2018 and Ragnarok have always been games that put characters first and plot second. And if you thought Ragnarok was slow-paced, what the fuck did you think of 2018? Because that game was literally just Kratos and Atreus bringing Faye's ashes to the top of the mountain and them learning to care for each other. Maybe it's just me, but I would take character over plot any day of the fucking week. Because seeing cool action happen is only gonna stick with you for a couple days after you play or watch something. But seeing actual character, people go through struggles and learn to overcome them and live with their flaws. I mean, goddamn, not to get emotional or anything, but that shit's honestly inspiring. Like, for example, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Fucking fantastic movie. Probably tied with La La Land as my favorite movie. Batshit crazy plot that honestly, when you start thinking about it, it doesn't make much sense, but you look at the characters in it and it's just fucking beautiful. Go watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, guys. That movie is fucking fantastic and probably the best movie I've seen all year.
Once you get to about midway through the game, it's pretty engaging and the action scenes are a lot more. So the cutscenes are a lot more forgivable. But in that opening scene, you know, the boy with his wolf, you know, he's crying over the wolves, but then he has to fight a wolf, and it's just all this stupid...
What? Where the fuck does he fight a wolf? What are you on, dude? What the hell?
Contradictory stuff that I just, from a writing perspective, did not appreciate. Again, that's to each their own, but that's my take on that. More unforgivingly, though, I think is the way that the story kind of doesn't have a built upon theme. And what I mean is like, okay, so in the last game, he was a dad. We all know that he's trying to build his son up and all that stuff. And now they're trying to establish the opening story again as him being a dad. We already know that, so don't spend the first half of the game establishing the fact that he's a father. We get it. But the whole game plays on the theme that he's a father, hence the name of this review, Dad of War. Even to the final boss, it's all about your children and being a dad.
Did you pay attention to the game at all? Jesus, Quantum, for your own sake, please don't talk about anything in writing ever again. This shit reminds me of Moist Critical's review of Last of Us 2, where he said that game's only theme is revenge is bad. Holy fuck, that review was awful. Yes, from a bare minimum perspective, both God of War Ragnarok and 2018 have the same theme of how to be a good dad. That being said, if you scratch even the tiniest of things beneath the surface of these games, you'll see there is so much more to them. Ragnarok's got themes of revenge, looking at different perspectives, being a leader, letting go of the people you care about, your actions having consequences, finding out the truth and whether it's worth it or not, and of course defining your expectations and going the way that you feel is right for you, despite what other people say. There are some phenomenal themes in this game, and if you would just take the time to look at it, you would see that, yeah, this is probably one of the best written games ever made, even with the poor incorporation of gameplay. Saying Ragnarok's only theme is that being a dad is hard is like saying How to Kill a Mockingbird's only theme is that racism is bad.
Did we really need a Kratos like that? I don't think we did. Now, again, personal opinion. That's what a review is. But again, I really can't stand the pacing of it, though. Now, the art style of this game can be characterized as one thing in my personal book. A little lazy. Because if you really look at it, it just loses a lot of the high next-gen aspects that we were expecting.
Well, it's not a next-gen game, so I don't know where the fuck that talking point came from. I agree that it shouldn't be $70, but I did not pay $70 for the game, so I'm not fucking bitching.
And to the point where you're in performance mode, there is no good reason why you can't be in performance mode at, say, 1440, 60 FPS with maxed out textures and resolution. It doesn't happen here.
No, it's because the PS5 isn't as strong as you think.
Now, I, again, similarly receive flack from players that love the game and apologize all of its flaws away, but I'm not one of those people.
We're not apologizing its flaws, you're literally just fucking wrong. Like again with the whole pacing thing, you're right, it's a very big flaw of the game, but you think the pacing is bad for the wrong reason.
I would have really loved to see some more of the fluid gameplay come back that we saw in the older games.
This is another point I see people bring up when comparing the gameplay of the first 3 God of War games to Ragnarok in 2018. And yeah, I agree. Ragnarok in 2018 when compared to the first 3 are fucking awful God of War games. But on their own, when they're not being compared to their predecessors, they're pretty damn good. It's like comparing Resident Evil 4 to the original Resident Evil trilogy on the PS1, which in the end, all that shit is subjective.
I loved how the Chaos Blades, or the Blades of Chaos, were just more swingy than they were in the older games, a lot faster than they are here, where it feels a little bit more sticky, especially when you...
Well, yeah, but that's because in between the 3rd and 4th game, Kratos jacked off on his Blades of Chaos and never wiped them off, so now they're sticky. See, Quantum, if you would have done an ounce of research, you would have known this. Come the fuck on, dude, get your shit together.
Hold the right bumper to pull off that combo, it never really feels smooth. It feels very clunky the way he pulls off that combo when you hold the right bumper. Now, generally, when you're swinging the blades around, you can have a good time, and they feel okay, they feel responsive enough, but it never really feels quite as good, in my opinion, as it did on the older games. And I think building upon that and building, like, let's say, actual combos would have been really cool, to now there's a challenge to pull off this new combo, not necessarily making it like a fighting game, but giving those more advanced players options to move in the direction of more advanced gameplay versus what feels to be kind of just a copy and paste of the last game. Give me a story. I like that. Very easy. You jump in and you just enjoy the game on easy mode. Now, I'm what you call a casual gamer, so for you guys that love a challenge, hey, go for it, but I work a hard job and I just kind of play these kind of games to unwind.
Wow! What do you know?
Quantum, how the fuck can you talk about how advanced the gameplay is of this game when you played it on the easiest difficulty? You have literally no idea what you're talking about right here. It's insane. The self-awareness is in the negatives. Although, I will be fair though, the gameplay in Ragnarok really isn't that advanced.
New players, though, will be happy to know that this game is really easy to pick up. It's not terribly difficult. If you click give me a story, they'll give you a story. The only downside that I find is like early on in the game, they don't really give you a waypoint. So like in the opening scene where you're like at the house, I did spend a little bit of time running around and I got a couple of locations wrong as to where I could go.
Quantum, it's a straight line. It's a glorified hallway. How do you get lost? Jesus Christ. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry.
But the game isn't so challenging or so vast that you can't figure out where you need to go if you get turned around. I do wish there was always a waypoint for people who wanted one, but again, for the exploration types, it gives you a little bit of that in the opening. Not so much towards the end of the game where things are a little bit more linear, but again, it's there. Now, you'll also be proud to know that despite people being really angry about Angrboda being a black girl, there are no politics in this game. So for people who are trying to bash the game and say it's just politics and all that stuff.
But Odin is an allegory for Trump! You have to kill our Lord and Savior Donald Trump in this game! 0 out of 10 wokest game of the fucking year!
President Trump, if you see this, please save us. I don't even see our American flag anymore. Biden is talking with some kind of crazy flag. This is America. This is our land. Please, President Trump.
It's really not. It's a fun game that I didn't run into anything like that. So that part, I can completely say when I've heard people saying that, it's just wrong because she did a great job, by the way. Angrboda, the person that played her, did fantastic.
I agree, honestly. The relationship between Atreus and Angrboda was really fucking cute, and I fucking loved that entire level in Ironwood with her. I don't know, it was just fucking perfect. That's probably my favorite level in the game, honestly.
I couldn't tell you how immersive it was when that character was in the screen talking to Loki and doing all that stuff. That was a really immersive part of the story, and I think especially you'll appreciate it the more the story progresses and then the more you see how things play out without giving too many spoilers on what her role is. So that I thought was really cool. Now I think we have to look at it realistically and say, like, how often are we going to play this game? That kind of determines if a game is worth anything in my book, and I think this is a good game. It's honestly, frankly, probably the best game of 2022 so far.
Again, Quantum, I agree. This is probably my favorite game of this year. I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit from my audience for not saying it's Elden Ring. But I mean, shit, I'm a fucking sucker for story-based games like this, and goddamn, they knocked it out of the fucking park with this one. I think Elden Ring might objectively be a better game, but I just preferred this, since in general, Elden Ring isn't really my thing. I also haven't finished Elden Ring yet, so there's that to take into consideration as well.
Now that's not a compliment, because we haven't had really good games this year. We just haven't. But this is absolutely the game of the year this year. Despite what some people think about Elden Ring, this one takes the cake, because it just does a lot to engage you enough, even though the opening is slow, that once you get the story going and you get into the game, it is fun and you have a lot of time and you're on like almost like an interest trip. Like, hey, like I want to know what comes next. Like you're kind of like waiting for the next little bit as it comes. And it's a fun experience that almost anyone of any walk of life can pick up and enjoy. And I think for video games, that's so important. Now, again, realistically, how often would you play it? That's where we have a little bit of a problem because they don't have chapters so you can pick your favorite parts of the story to say, you know what, I like this chapter because all the action was in this scene. If they would have done that like we see in some Tomb Raider games or even some other games, I think that would be more ideal than the kind of format that we have now. Or I think it was like Uncharted, actually. I just stick with PlayStation. Uncharted lets you pick chapters, and this really doesn't. My point being is, like, chapters aren't hard to implement. They need to work on that with these storytelling type games so we can pick what we want. Outside of that, though, it was a really fun experience, and even though it was slow in the beginning, and I had a terrible time, bored out of my mind, once I gave it a little bit more time, again, coming back to it, because I'll be honest, I had to pause and come back to it, but once I came back to it, I really did have a blast, and it was a lot of fun. The puzzles are engaging, they challenge you enough, but not—
That's the one criticism, if anything, that'll give Ragnarok. The puzzles are fucking dog shit. Like, they literally tell you the fucking answers if you wait long enough, and you can't turn that shit off. That's embarrassing.
Not too much, which I can appreciate about puzzles not being too difficult, but just challenging enough. All in all, I would say this game is a solid 8 out of 10. It is a really good game, and I think a lot of people will like it. Again, there's no such thing, I think, in my opinion, as like a perfect score, and it would have been a 9 if it would have had chapters and wouldn't have been a copy and paste combat-wise as the last game. So just to kind of go into why it got the rating it did. But again, be that as it may, this is just my take, but I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. The #1 brand in honesty. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, nah, that review was fucking ass. The main shit that really showed me he didn't understand this game was the writing stuff. And then there's also the fact he just slapped an 8 out of 10 on the game to try to avoid criticism for his review despite dogging on the game throughout the entire video and just saying a few words of positivity towards the end, but not nearly enough to give the implication that he actually thought it was an 8 out of 10. And then all of the other actually important stuff he left out. Like, he never mentioned the music for this game, which is really good, and honestly, I haven't heard that many people talk about it, which is insane because the music is fucking phenomenal. Or the whole puzzle controversy, how the game literally takes your hand and drags you through all the puzzles. But even with all those flaws I just listed, Ragnarok is still really good. Because dude, the writing on this game is just fantastic. Aside from a few lame endings to some of the characters' stories, it's damn near perfect. I don't know, man, it's just nice to finally, after years of having PlayStation exclusives being story focused, but with their writing ranging from mid to just dog shit since the last God of War game in 2018, with the one exception of Spider-Man Miles Morales. I actually just finished that last week and it was really good. Honestly, better than the 2018 Spider-Man game, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't tried it. But aside from that one exception, Ragnarok is the first PlayStation game since the last God of War game that had phenomenal writing. And honestly, when I think about it, this is probably the best written one since the first Last of Us all the way back in 2013, almost 10 years ago. So yeah, go play God of War Ragnarok, bust out your old PS4 like I did and suffer through the 30 FPS, because honestly, from how good the writing in this game is, it's kind of worth it. That was a joke, don't shoot me. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, join my Discord, and follow my Twitter. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.
What are you going to do?